Hello, Dr. Childress here. So we have our goal to cleanse mental health of the pathogen infection that's disabling the mental health response to the pathogen. We have a rough idea of our frontal assault on the binding sites of ignorance in order to cut off the pathogen's access to the mental health system, which it's using to disable the mental health response. This direct frontal assault also has another purpose, to get the attention of mental health generally. My father had a story about a guy who bought a mule. A man went to buy a mule to carry his goods to the market, and the salesman brought out a mule, and the man asked the salesman, "Is this a strong mule?" The salesman reassured him it was one of the strongest. The man asked the salesman if it was an obedient mule, and the salesman said, "Oh, yes, very obedient." So the man bought the mule, he loaded up the mule for market, and then told the mule, "Giddy up." The mule just stood there, didn't move. The man grabbed the mule's harness and began to pull. Nothing. The mule didn't move. Man started pushing from behind. Nothing. Mule didn't budge. Man turned to the salesman and said, "I thought you said this mule was obedient." The salesman said, "Oh, I'm sorry." And he walked over and picked up a large 2x4. The salesman then walked in front of the mule and bam! Hit the mule across the head with the 2x4. The mule staggered back a few steps and all dazed. And the salesman said, "Giddy up." And the mule obediently began to trot forward. The salesman turned to the man and said, "You just have to get his attention first." The purpose of licensing board complaints is not to hurt anyone. We do not want to hurt anyone. And I'll talk about this later when I talk to the parents that are going to engage in this frontal assault on the binding sites of ignorance. But our goal is not to file licensing board complaints to get some sort of revenge for wrongs that were done to you. Our goal is to get the attention, in no uncertain terms, of mental health. You are done being victims. You are done tolerating professional ignorance and incompetence. It is not your job to educate mental health. It's their job to know what they're doing. From this point forward, you are going to expect professional competence from mental health regarding an attachment-based model of parental alienation. I don't care what they may think or say about Gardnerian PAS. Gardnerian PAS is irrelevant. We're not talking about Gardnerian PAS. We're talking about the attachment system, personality disorders, role reversal relationships, trauma reenactment, splitting, the words of power from foundations. That's what we're talking about, and that's what they're expected to know. And I'll be talking to mental health professionals in a later video. So ignorance and collusion with the pathology stops now, today. But our deeper goal is to demand the attention of mental health establishment. The mental health system has been compromised by the infection from an extremely malignant and sophisticated pathogen, so that the mental health response to this pathogen has been disabled. Because of this, tremendous tragedy and suffering is being inflicted on families and on children who are being psychologically abused with no response from mental health. We're asking professional mental health to wake up from its slumber and to attend to your needs and those of your children. You're suffering and your children are suffering. You need mental health to respond appropriately to this pathogen. You're using the threat of licensing board complaints against the binding sites of ignorance as a means to awaken establishment mental health from its sleep, to get their attention. We don't want to hurt anyone. We don't want to fight. We desperately want a negotiated resolution. All we're asking for is a revision of the APA position statement on parental alienation that formally recognizes the parental alienation pathogen as existing, a penetration of the veil of concealment used by the pathogen, and a statement that your children and families represent a special population, which is an understood professional term, who require specialized professional knowledge and expertise to competently assess, diagnose, and treat. Asking for professional competence is not a lot. We just want standard 2.01 and 3.04 to be enacted relative to your children and families, that's all. But if establishment mental health continues to sleep while your children suffer and are lost to the pathology, then it is absolutely reasonable that you will take matters into your own hands to protect your children. The number one obligation of you, as an authentic parent, is to protect your children. Establishment mental health can't expect you just to stand by and allow your children to be psychologically abused by the pathology of parental alienation. What I've done in Foundations is I've made available to you standards 2.01 and 3.04 of the APA Ethics Code. This is their code. It's their standards of establishment mental health, developed as professional standards of practice. It applies to you and your families as much as to anyone. And if they say, well, this parental alienation is controversial or it doesn't exist, we're not talking about Gardnerian PAS. We're talking about an attachment-based model. We're not talking about parental alienation. We're talking about personality disorders. Personality disorders are established psychological phenomena. They exist. We're talking about the attachment system. The attachment system is not controversial. It is a scientifically established and accepted psychological fact. The attachment system exists. We're talking about delusions and trauma reenactment. These things exist. So if someone in mental health tries to tell you that parental alienation is controversial or doesn't exist, just tell them that, oh, Dr. Childress agrees with you 100%, which is why he always puts the term in quotes. But the component elements that make up the construct of parental alienation, oh, those definitely exist. And an attachment-based model of parental alienation, as defined in Foundations, oh, that definitely exists. The pathogen of parental alienation exists, and it's defined through a number of subcomponent constructs, such as the reenactment of childhood attachment trauma, the manifestation of parental narcissistic and borderline personality processes, the triangulation of the child into the spousal conflict through a cross-generational coalition of the child with one parent against the other parent. These are the words of power I give you in Foundations. You'll need these professional words of power. The words parental alienation have no power. The words of professional power that I give you in Foundations give you power. So our direct frontal assault on the binding sites of ignorance is to get the attention of establishment mental health. This then becomes where our second wave of assault on the APA comes in. In the assault on the APA, you need to generate publicity. Lots and lots and lots of publicity. Time Magazine, Good Morning America, 60 Minutes kind of publicity. An uprising of authentic parents. Your colleagues who are directly assaulting the binding sites of ignorance are generating the attention of establishment mental health with licensing board complaints against mental health professionals. You'll generate the attention of establishment mental health with media focus. Lots and lots of media focus. As much as you can possibly generate. Local papers, radio, talk shows, online media, everywhere. You have a great story that the media would love. First, there's a media hook of your suffering and tragedy. Then there's the energy of a grassroots uprising of authentic parents fighting the system to protect their children. The media will love that angle. Then there's the failed mental health and legal systems that allow and actually collude with the psychological abuse of children. You have all the ingredients for the media. Plus, when the media comes to hear your story, send them to me, send them to Dorsey Pruder and Brian Ludmer. We have the three components covered: mental health, law, and community spokesperson. When you send us media, we will absolutely do right by you and your children. We've got it covered. But, and here's the thing, the media will want to balance the story with presenting the other side. There is no other side. What are you going to do? Interview pathology? Oh, wait. That's exactly what they'll do. They'll interview the allies of the pathogen who will talk about their criticism of the Gardnerian PAS model, that the pathogen's already disabled. Controversial, junk science. The pathogen will try to group this new, sterile anti-pathogen of attachment-based parental alienation onto the prior Gardnerian PAS model that it's already disabled. You must not let this happen. This is new, a new paradigm, new model, not the old PAS. This is new, scientifically based, new. Don't let the pathogen attach foundations to Gardnerian PAS. If you allow the media to link an attachment-based model to Gardnerian PAS, you will lose 50% of your power, and it will take you 5 additional years to recover your children. If you keep the two models separate, I'm hoping to have 20% of your kids back to you by this Christmas and 100% of them back to you by Christmas 2016, at least of the currently active alienations. The adult survivors of childhood alienation, I'd probably hope for 50% by Christmas 2017 and about 95% by 2020. But not if you allow the attachment-based model to become mixed and confused with Gardnerian PAS. New, different, not your same old tired debate. New, revolutionary. And the media will love this too. There's a definite hook for the media in new. So instead of both sides of the issue, this is so new and revolutionary, there is no other side. If you can get 60 Minutes to do a story on the parental insurrection against the mental health establishment, in which they use the phrase, a revolutionary model of parental alienation, you're home free. Start wrapping your Christmas presents. Remember, the pathogen relies on remaining hidden. Once it's exposed, it loses its power. Even the defenses of attack and allies become powerless once the pathogen is exposed. The defenses of attack and allies are just to nullify the threat of exposure so the pathogen can return to being hidden. All of its power comes from remaining hidden. Once it's exposed, it has no power, not even the power of attack and allies. While it's hidden, you continually have to defend yourself against its attacks, or they might stick to you. People might actually believe the attacks. But once the pathogen's exposed, nobody believes the attacks. Everyone knows that it's just the pathogen. Everyone knows that the pathogen lies and makes things up. No one believes the pathogen once they see it. Once it's exposed, the attacks only have power as long as the pathogen remains hidden. Same thing for allies. The pathogen can only recruit allies from ignorance. Once the pathogen is seen, it's like, go away, I'm not going to be your ally, you're a pathogen. Once you break the veil of concealment, the pathogen becomes powerless. It lives and thrives in darkness, lies, and ignorance. By generating media attention onto it as much as you possibly can, you will break through its veil of concealment. It can no longer remain hidden, and it will become powerless to stop you from recovering your children. So we're engaging this battle for mental health on two fronts. Through a direct frontal assault on the binding sites of ignorance that the pathogen is using to infect and disable the mental health system, and through an assault on the establishment of mental health through the APA by generating a ton of media exposure to break the pathogen's veil of concealment, with a direct focus on reclaiming the APA's position statement on parental alienation from the pathogen. The position statement of the APA on parental alienation should belong to you and your children, not to the pathogen. Take it back. Follow me to the next video segment.